Hello everyone, as with you always, this is Rich doing another video today on XRP. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day today wherever you are in this great world. We're gonna talk about XRP. And I gotta start with this. White House predicts tokenization boom, putting XRP ledger in the spotlight. So the White House is predicting a tokenization boom within the next 1 to 3 years. I think it all starts in 2026. I think we're going to see a major surge in tokenization by the end of this year. And it's going to continue all throughout 2027 and 2028. That's why I said, once the price of XRP starts rising, the dip that we just seen might be the last dip we see on XRP for a long period of time. Because if you're going to see this rise in tokenization and all that value keeps onboarding to the XRP ledger, how do we get these price drops that everyone is expecting? I think we are at the end of the line for XRP having these major sell-off events, because what's going to hold up the price of XRP is its actual utility. The institutional DeFi roadmap details how the XRP ledger is advancing toward everyday institutional use, with XRP at the center of settlement, FX, collateral, and on-chain credit. This comes from Ripple. So here's what's live right now. MPT, a flexible token standard that can carry essential metadata, such as mature dates, tranches, or transfer restrictions, without relying on complex smart contracts. We all know credentials just went live. Same thing with permission domains. Simulate, it allows you to run test runs on transactions to see how everything is going to play out. And this way, you don't see, you could see the risk before you actually send the actual transaction. Deep freeze lets token issuers prevent misuse by frozen account holders. It ensures that flagged addresses cannot send or receive tokens until their trust line is unfrozen. XRP Ledger EVM sidechain. We know about that as well. Powered by EXRP and bridged via Axelar. But here's what's coming soon. Permission DEX. That's going to be very big because that's going to allow everything to start flowing. Then you got the lending protocol. That's going to be big for institutions. Confidential transfers for multi-purpose tokens to be released in Q1. Confidential transfers for multi-purpose tokens enable institutional-grade privacy on the XRP ledger using zero-knowledge proofs. Smart escrows, Q2. MPT, DEX integration, Q2. Institutional DeFi portal, also happening in Q1. That explores tokenization, lending, and payments in one place. So you could see the growth that is coming for the XRP ledger. And what's great about that is this is all getting done just ahead of institutional adoption. I think Ripple wants to capture a good percentage of that institutional adoption. These Ripple patents show why XRP cannot be copied or replicated. This is an absolutely incredible article, and it's everything that I always have been telling you all along. Why copying the code is not the same as copying XRP. The patents mentioned above are only a few from the total number of patents held by Ripple Labs, XRP's parent company. And we know about the 39 patents globally, out of which 18 have been granted. At a surface level, parts of the XRP ledger are open source, which means developers can study the code and even fork it to create similar looking networks. This has led to assumptions that XRP itself can be easily replicated. A team could replicate the consensus mechanism, transaction speed, and fee structure, and even issue a new token that functions almost identically on paper. In that narrow technical sense, then XRP can be copied. However, XRP's value does not come from the code alone. XRP's value can be attributed to over a decade of live operation, deep exchange liquidity across jurisdictions, and its association with Ripple, which has spent years building relationships with banks, payment providers, regulators, and institutions, building out the rails. The software defines how transactions are processed on a ledger, but it does not define the legally protected system that uses XRP as a bridge asset between financial institutions. Ripple, for one, is working fervently to position XRP as the bridge asset, with a recent example being the expansion into the Middle East with a partnership with Riyadh Bank. Like I've been telling you all along, they could create something that looks like XRP, acts like XRP, but it's never going to be XRP because the patents cover the most important aspects of this cryptocurrency. Also, they don't have the rail system like Ripple has built for over the past decade, and that's why there will never be an alternative to XRP. Remember, 99% of crypto goes to zero. Take a listen.
Ahead. I think, anytime there's a new market, there's a lot of people that run into that market and try to show that they can solve a problem, they can deliver a customer need. I have said publicly before that I think 99% of all crypto probably goes to zero. But there is that 1% where I think that is focused on solving a real problem for real customers and is able to do that at scale. And that's going to be game-changing, and I think that's going to continue to grow significantly in the decades ahead.
I think Brad is absolutely right. I think once we get regulations, we're going to see a lot of tokens disappear like an overnight event. And the liquidity that's sitting in those cryptocurrencies, it's going to have to flow into something else. And you honestly think somebody that's holding a meme coin and somebody that's holding a cryptocurrency that looked great, but actually wasn't really doing anything, where do you think their money's going to go? They're not going to take that money into Bitcoin unless they have a lot of money and they could buy a handful of Bitcoin with it. But if they put that money into XRP, they could have a decent bag of XRP. I think when the 99% of crypto starts going to zero, I think it's going to look like a black swan event, but that liquidity is going to start pushing up cryptocurrencies that have actual use case and actual value. Treasury Secretary Bessent says, unlike the Federal Reserve, I can't print magic money. Even the Treasury knows that the Fed prints magic money. And that's why you never want to sell something that goes up in value for US dollars. This is the magic money he's talking about. And the dollar continues to lose more and more value as time goes on. Why not stay invested in something that goes up in value? I still believe in the future, they're gonna price things out in crypto. In other words, 10 XRP could buy you a brand new car. 100 buys you a house. We are going to see things valued in XRP. And I don't even think XRP should be valued in US dollars at all. This comes from Paul Barron. Narrative shift. For years, the too big to fail crowd has used safety as an excuse to keep stablecoins out of the hands of the little guys. Now the crypto industry is flipping the script. Main Street over Wall Street by using community banks for reserve deposits and settlement. Crypto is building a bridge to the banks that actually lend to local businesses. Oops, ABA not going to like this move. This would end the monopoly. This move directly challenges the big banks' efforts to loophole the Genius Act to keep smaller competitors sidelined. The power shift. If community banks hold the reserves, they get the liquidity, not the same three banks that are already controlling everything. Is this a power move or just pushing the big banks to settle and back off? Because now what's going on to end this deadlock? Now they are willing to say that they will hold the backing money for stable coins in community banks. And then the banks could take that money and loan it out or do whatever they want with it. But I want to see where this goes from here. Now that crypto is willing to give a little bit on this, I think there's a much bigger play happening. And I think Paul Barron is right. This will be a huge power shift to get crypto into the banking system. As XRP's price falls by almost 20% in the last 24 hours, almost double the fall of other top 10 coins, another 25 million RLUSD has been minted in the last couple of hours, taking the market cap to over 1.5 billion. So even while the market was falling, we see RLUSD was minted at the same time. I'm telling you, there's a lot of momentum around RLUSD right now, and that's going to bring a lot of value to XRP. XRP traders are more optimistic as Bitcoin ETH mood turns sour. So this comes from Sentiment. What they're saying is in a post on Wednesday that XRP is seeing a more optimistic outlook among traders on social media as Bitcoin and Ethereum have turned extremely bearish after a major downswing. Sentiment's positive negative sentiment indicator, which measures the ratio of positive to negative social media mentions for a crypto asset, shows XRP has a score of 2.19. 103% higher than Ethereum, and 173% higher than Bitcoin. And I think it's because the Bitcoin maxis seem to have disappeared on X. Every once in a while, you see that post about how Epstein doesn't hurt Bitcoin in any way. Well, I think the market is telling us something different. They're trying to get that marketing scheme going behind Bitcoin again. They're trying to push anything positive that they can. And they're hoping that everyone forgets about the Epstein ties to Bitcoin. XRP descending triangle breakout could lead to 111% to a 432% spike against Bitcoin. Wow, it's been a long day. So, like I always told you, whenever you see that descending triangle, you usually expect a major push up. And I think we're going to see the same thing on the XRP versus Bitcoin chart. And if that happens, we could see XRP start to decouple away from Bitcoin and go on a massive run up, leaving Bitcoin behind. I would love to see that happen. But I think that's what's been loading this entire time. I think we're very close to the decoupling to begin with, because now you're starting to see how institutional demand is rising for XRP. And with institutional demand rising, we're going to see a lot of institutional adoption. And that's going to bring a lot of utility with it. And they're going to actually start utilizing the actual token. But until it all happens, stay patient, stay positive, and let's get rich together. With that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great night.